They hunt at night. 5 real creatures still living in our world. When darkness falls across rural America and the familiar world transforms into hunting grounds for entities that have no place in modern science, ordinary people discover that some legends carry the weight of terrifying truth. These aren't fictional monsters or folklore passed down through generations. These are documented encounters investigated by law enforcement, reported by credible witnesses, and recorded in official files that challenge everything we thought we knew about the natural world. Night creatures hunt in the spaces between civilization and wilderness, where human technology fails and ancient predators continue stalking prey that our ancestors learned to fear when fire was our only protection against the darkness. The 5 cases you're about to hear represent decades of witness testimony, police investigations, and physical evidence that suggests we share this world with predators that science refuses to acknowledge. If you love what we do here, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe. It helps us summon more stories from the shadows, every single night. Number 5, the Beast of Bray Road. Elkhorn, Wisconsin seemed like any other rural farming community until the winter of 1936, when Mark Shackleman encountered something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Shackleman was driving home from his job at the local feed mill when his Model T Ford broke down on a lonely stretch of Bray Road. The snow was coming down hard, and the temperature had dropped below zero. As he worked under the hood by lamplight, Shackleman heard something moving through the cornfield beside the road. Heavy footsteps crunched through frozen stalks with a rhythm that wasn't quite human but wasn't animal either. When he looked up, a massive figure stood at the edge of the field. 7 feet tall and covered in dark fur, the creature walked upright on legs that bent like a human's, but ended in paws that left tracks in the snow. Its head resembled a wolf, but the eyes held intelligence that no animal should possess. The thing stared at Shackleman for what felt like hours before turning and disappearing into the cornfield, with movements that were eerily silent for something of its size. Shackleman reported the incident to Walworth County Sheriff's Department the next morning. Deputy Sheriff Paul Burgess took his statement, but filed it under animal sighting, despite Shackleman's insistence that what he'd seen wasn't any known animal. For 50 years, the incident remained buried in departmental records. Then came October 31st, 1999, when 18-year-old Doristine Gibson was driving down Bray Road after her job at the local Dairy Queen. Gibson saw what she initially thought was a person kneeling beside something in the ditch. As she slowed down to offer help, the figure stood up and revealed itself as a massive wolf-like creature that towered over her small Honda. The beast had been feeding on roadkill. Its muzzle dripped with blood, and chunks of flesh hung from teeth that reflected her headlights like polished bone. When it looked at her through the windshield, Gibson felt terror unlike anything she'd ever experienced. The creature approached her car with deliberate steps that suggested intelligence rather than animal curiosity. It placed massive clawed hands on her hood and leaned down to study her through the glass. Gibson floored the accelerator and sped home, where she called 911 in hysterics. Walworth County Sheriff's Department responded to her call by sending Deputy John Fredrickson to investigate. Fredrickson found deep scratches in the paint on Gibson's hood that appeared to be claw marks from something with opposable thumbs. The incident prompted Sheriff's Detective Linda Godfrey to begin investigating similar reports that had been filed over the decades but dismissed as hoaxes or misidentifications. Godfrey discovered a pattern of encounters spanning 60 years. Farmers reported livestock killed by something that left tracks showing both human and canine characteristics. Hunters described being stalked by a creature that walked upright but moved with predatory grace that exceeded human capability. The most disturbing reports came from motorists who encountered the beast during late-night drives along rural roads. Multiple witnesses described a creature that seemed to understand automotive technology and deliberately targeted vehicles. In 2003, county road worker Steve Kruger was repairing guardrails on Bray Road when he found himself face-to-face with the creature during his evening shift. Kruger described an animal the size of a large man but covered in coarse brown fur. It stood on its hind legs while examining his truck with obvious intelligence, checking door handles and testing window strength. When Kruger started his engine, the creature didn't flee like normal wildlife would. Instead, it watched his departure with what appeared to be analytical interest, as if studying human behavior and technology. Physical evidence began accumulating as more people came forward with their experiences. Hair samples collected from areas where the beast had been sighted showed characteristics that didn't match any known North American wildlife. DNA analysis revealed a mixture of wolf and unknown mammalian genetics. Plaster casts of footprints found at encounter sites displayed human-like arch structure combined with canine pad, configuration, and claw marks that suggested a hybrid anatomy that shouldn't exist in nature. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources investigated multiple livestock killings that showed attack patterns inconsistent with known predators. Animals were killed with surgical precision and partially consumed according to feeding behaviors that didn't match any documented species. Hunter trail cameras occasionally captured blurred images of a large bipedal figure moving through forest areas where the beast had been reported. The creature seemed aware of camera locations and usually avoided direct photography. Local authorities eventually acknowledged a pattern of unexplained encounters, but stopped short of officially recognizing the existence of an unknown species. The incidents were classified as unidentified animal sightings pending further investigation. Bray Road became the focus of paranormal investigators and cryptozoologists seeking evidence of creatures that exist beyond current scientific understanding. The area attracts researchers from around the world studying unexplained predator encounters. And on Bray Road, something still hunts that walks like a man but kills like a wolf. Number 4, the Pope Lick Monster. The Norfolk Southern Railway trestle that spans Pope Lick Creek in Louisville, Kentucky has been the site of numerous unexplained deaths and encounters with something that local authorities prefer not to discuss in official reports. The first documented incident occurred in August 1987, when teenagers Jack J.C. Baum and David Bryant were struck and killed by a Norfolk Southern train while crossing the 772-foot-long trestle. According to witness David Wayne Johnson, who survived the encounter, the boys weren't simply trespassing on railroad property. They were fleeing from something that had been pursuing them through the woods surrounding Pope Lick Creek. Johnson described a creature that stood nearly 8 feet tall with human characteristics but possessed goat-like legs and horns. Its eyes reflected the moonlight with an unnatural glow, and it moved with speed that exceeded human capability through dense undergrowth. The 3 teenagers had been exploring the area around midnight when they heard sounds coming from the creek bottom, a mixture of human screams and animal bleating that created an acoustic nightmare unlike anything in nature. When they investigated the source of the sounds, Johnson said they discovered the creature feeding on something near the water's edge. The beast's attention turned to the teenagers when Johnson's flashlight beam illuminated its feeding activities. The pursuit through the woods lasted nearly 20 minutes before the boys reached the trestle, believing they could cross before any train arrived. The creature followed them onto the railroad tracks, moving with agility that allowed it to navigate the wooden ties faster than the teenagers could run. When the Norfolk Southern freight train appeared, Johnson managed to hang from the side of the trestle until it passed. Baum and Bryant weren't as fortunate, but Johnson insisted their deaths weren't accidental. They were deliberately driven onto the tracks by the creature as part of its hunting strategy. Louisville Metro Police initially dismissed Johnson's story as trauma-induced hallucination, resulting from witnessing his friends' deaths. However, additional encounters on the trestle began accumulating over subsequent years. In 1993, park maintenance worker Raymond Collins reported seeing a large bipedal creature moving along the tracks during his early morning inspection rounds. The entity fled when Collins approached, but left behind tracks that showed a combination of human and ungulate characteristics. Collins described the creature as having human torso and arms, but legs that bent backwards like a goat's hind limbs. Its movement created distinctive sound patterns that echoed off the trestle structure in ways that suggested anatomy designed for different locomotion than normal human walking. The Jefferson County Police Department began documenting encounters after train engineer Marcus Webb reported multiple sightings of the creature between 2001 and 2004. Webb described an entity that seemed to deliberately time its appearances to coincide with train schedules, positioning itself on the tracks in ways that forced emergency braking procedures that endangered both crew and cargo. The creature demonstrated understanding of railroad operations and deliberately interfered with train traffic through positioning and timing that suggested intelligence rather than coincidental encounters. In 2016, Roquel Bowen, 26, and David Wayne, 23, were killed while attempting to cross the trestle during what they described to friends as an investigation of local paranormal activity. Witness Savannah Bright, who survived by jumping from the trestle into Popelik Creek below, reported that the couple had been documenting their encounter with an unknown entity using smartphone cameras when the train approached. Bright claimed the creature had been communicating with them through a series of bleeding calls that created acoustic patterns resembling human speech. The entity appeared to be luring them further onto the trestle through supernatural manipulation of their decision-making process. When the train's headlight illuminated the trestle, Bright could see the creature standing behind Bane and Wayne, preventing their retreat while encouraging them to continue forward into the train's path. Physical evidence collected at encounter sites includes hair samples that don't match any documented species, and track patterns that suggest a hybrid creature combining human and caprine anatomy. Audio recordings captured by paranormal investigators reveal vocalizations that combine human speech patterns with animal sounds in ways that create acoustic effects designed to attract human attention and encourage approach behavior. The Norfolk Southern Railway Corporation has implemented additional safety measures around Popelik Trestle, but these improvements focus on preventing human trespassing, rather than addressing the creature that multiple witnesses claim uses the location as hunting grounds. And at Popelik Creek, something still calls it sounds almost human. Number 3. The Fouke Monster. Fouke, Arkansas became the center of one of America's most documented cryptid investigations, following a series of encounters that began in 1971 when Bobby Ford's family experienced a home invasion by something that defied zoological classification. On the evening of May 2, 1971, Ford returned to his house on County Road 5 to find his wife Elizabeth in hysterics and deep scratches carved into the wooden siding where something had tried to break through the exterior walls. Elizabeth Ford described a creature that stood nearly 8 feet tall and weighed approximately 800 pounds attempting to enter their home through a window adjacent to their bedroom. The entity's massive hands left permanent impressions in the window frame where it had gripped the wood while trying to gain access. The creature was covered in dark hair and possessed human-like intelligence, but moved with predatory grace that suggested superhuman strength and agility. Its breathing was audible through closed windows, and its body odor permeated their house despite remaining outside. Miller County Sheriff's Department responded to the Ford family's emergency call and found physical evidence that supported their account. Deputy Sheriff Charles Sharp documented track patterns around the house, showing massive footprints with human arch characteristics but size that exceeded any known primate. The tracks measured 17 inches in length and showed deep impressions in hard-packed earth that suggested the creature's weight exceeded normal human parameters. Stride length indicated leg structure that allowed covering significant distances with each step. 3 weeks after the initial encounter, Bobby Ford and his brother Don encountered the creature during a hunting expedition in the Sulphur River bottoms near their property. The brothers were tracking deer when they heard heavy footsteps moving parallel to their position through dense undergrowth. When they investigated, they found a massive bipedal creature standing in a clearing approximately 100 yards away. Don Ford attempted to shoot the creature with his .22 caliber rifle, striking it in the shoulder region. The entity responded with vocalizations that combined human screams with animal roars while charging toward the brothers with speed that exceeded human running capability. Both men fled to their truck and drove to the Miller County Sheriff's Department to report the encounter. Deputy Sharp returned to the scene and found blood samples and additional track evidence that supported the brothers' account. The creature's apparent invulnerability to small caliber gunfire and its aggressive response to attacks suggested anatomy that differed significantly from known wildlife species. Hair samples collected from the scene showed characteristics that didn't match documented North American mammals. Word of the Ford family encounters spread throughout southwestern Arkansas, prompting additional witnesses to come forward with their own experiences, spanning several decades. Local residents reported livestock killings that increased dramatically after the Ford shootings. Cattle and pigs were found dead, with wounds that suggested attacks by something with human-level intelligence but animal predatory instincts. The creature seemed capable of learning from human behavior and adapting its hunting strategies accordingly. It avoided areas where armed humans gathered while continuing to terrorize isolated rural properties. In 1972, tracking expeditions organized by Arkansas Game and Fish Commission located additional physical evidence, including bent trees, that showed breakage patterns requiring strength that exceeded human capability. Footprint casts revealed anatomical features that suggested a hybrid between human and unknown primate characteristics. The creature's feet showed opposable toe structure that allowed tree climbing while maintaining bipedal locomotion across various terrain. Audio recordings captured during investigation attempts revealed vocalizations that ranged from human-like screams to animal calls that didn't match any documented Arkansas wildlife species. The Fook monster incidents attracted national media attention and paranormal investigators seeking evidence of unknown species existing in North American wilderness areas. The 1972 documentary film, The Legend of Boggy Creek, brought international attention to the Fook encounters while prompting tourism that transformed the small Arkansas community into a destination for cryptid enthusiasts. Local authorities continue receiving reports of unusual creature encounters in the Sulphur River Bottoms area, but official investigation efforts have been scaled back due to lack of conclusive physical evidence. And in the Arkansas wilderness, something still walks that leaves tracks bigger than any known animal. Number 2. The Michigan Dogman. Michigan's northwestern forest became the focus of paranormal investigation, following a series of encounters that began in 1887, when two lumberjacks near Wexford County reported being stalked by a creature that combined human intelligence with predatory animal instincts. The first documented incident occurred when loggers Joseph Warren and Samuel Mitchell encountered a bipedal creature while working the night shift at a lumber camp along the Manistee River. Warren described a wolf-like entity that stood on its hind legs while demonstrating problem-solving abilities that exceeded normal animal cognition. The creature had been systematically destroying logging equipment and appeared to understand the relationship between tools and human work activities. When confronted by the loggers, the entity didn't flee like normal wildlife would. Instead, it studied their response to its presence while communicating through vocalizations that resembled human speech, distorted by anatomy designed for different acoustic production. The creature's behavior suggested territorial intelligence that recognized logging operations as threats to its habitat, while possessing capability to conduct strategic harassment of human activities. Wexford County authorities investigated the incident, but attributed equipment damage to human vandalism, despite physical evidence that exceeded normal human destructive capability. For nearly a century, similar encounters occurred sporadically throughout Michigan's northern forests, reported by hunters, campers, and forestry workers who described a wolf-like creature with human-level intelligence. The modern era of Michigan Dogman investigation began in 1987, when disc jockey Steve Cook created a song about the creature for an April Fool's Day radio broadcast. The song prompted hundreds of listeners to contact the radio station with their own encounter experiences. Cook's research revealed a pattern of sightings occurring in 7-year cycles, with increased activity during years ending in 7. The pattern suggested the creature followed supernatural rather than natural behavioral cycles. In 1994, teenager Micah Grusa encountered the Dogman while camping with friends in the Huron National Forest near Grayling. Agrusa described a creature that stood approximately 7 feet tall and possessed wolf-like facial features, but demonstrated human-like intelligence and tool use. The entity had been systematically destroying their campsite while the group slept, methodically dismantling equipment in ways that suggested understanding of human camping procedures and deliberate psychological warfare tactics. When Agrusa confronted the creature, it spoke in human words mixed with canine vocalizations, referring to the campsite as its territory and demanding the teenagers leave immediately or face consequences. The encounter was reported to Michigan State Police, who documented the incident but classified it as a bear encounter, despite track evidence that showed bipedal locomotion and opposable thumb characteristics. In 2007, truck driver Steve Nobis captured video footage of what appeared to be a large bipedal creature crossing a highway near Manistee National Forest. The footage showed an entity moving with both human and canine characteristics while demonstrating awareness of automotive traffic. Analysis of Nobis's video revealed anatomical features that didn't match any known North American wildlife species. The creature's movement patterns suggested a hybrid anatomy combining wolf and human characteristics in ways that challenged zoological understanding. Investigation of Dogman encounter sites revealed consistent physical evidence, including hair samples with DNA markers that didn't match documented species, track patterns showing hybrid anatomy, and scratch marks on trees that required strength exceeding human capability. Multiple hunters reported being stalked by the creature during deer season, describing an entity that understood human hunting behavior and deliberately interfered with hunting activities through psychological intimidation rather than direct confrontation. The creature demonstrated ability to mimic human voices to lure people into vulnerable situations, using acoustic deception that suggested intelligence capable of language acquisition and strategic communication. Michigan Department of Natural Resources acknowledged receiving reports of unusual predator encounters, but maintained official position that sightings represented misidentifications of known wildlife species or fabricated accounts. Local law enforcement agencies throughout northern Michigan continue documenting unusual incident reports involving large predator encounters, but official investigation protocols classify these incidents under conventional wildlife categories. And in Michigan's forests, something howls that sounds almost like human laughter. Number 1, the Beast of Bladenboro. Bladenboro, North Carolina became the center of one of America's most documented cryptid investigations, following a series of livestock killings that began during Christmas week 1953 and challenged every known predator behavior pattern. The first incident occurred on December 29, 1953, when farmer W.E. Woody Storms discovered 2 of his dogs dead in his front yard, with wounds that defied conventional explanation. Both animals had been killed by what appeared to be a single bite to the neck area, but their bodies showed no evidence of feeding activity or mutilation. The attacker had consumed blood while leaving flesh and organs untouched, behavior that didn't match any known predator species. Bladenboro Police Chief Roy Forres investigated the incident and found track patterns around Storm's property that measured approximately 6 inches in length, but showed feline pad structure combined with characteristics from an unknown species. The tracks led from the scene across several properties before disappearing near the Cape Fear River, suggesting the creature used waterways for transportation and concealment. 3 days later, additional livestock deaths occurred throughout Bladenboro with identical attack patterns. Farmer C.E. Kinlaw lost 2 pigs, businessman Luther Britt's rabbit pen was devastated, and several residents found their dogs dead with the same mysterious neck wounds. In each case, the attacker had consumed blood while avoiding flesh consumption. Veterinary examination revealed tissue damage that suggested the creature possessed fangs designed specifically for blood extraction rather than typical predatory killing methods. The attack pattern repeated for 2 weeks with increasing frequency. By January 12, 1954, over 30 animals had been found dead throughout Bladenboro and surrounding Bladen County communities. Local authorities contacted wildlife experts, seeking species identification that could explain the unusual predation behavior. North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission investigators examined attack sites, but found no evidence matching documented predator species. The creature's hunting pattern suggested intelligence that exceeded normal animal capability. It avoided properties where armed humans maintained watch while systematically targeting livestock in areas where detection was unlikely. During the second week of January, multiple witnesses reported direct encounters with the creature responsible for the livestock killings. Farmer Woody Storms observed a large feline-like animal crossing his property during daylight hours. He described a creature resembling a mountain lion, but larger and more muscular, with unusual coloration that appeared almost black in sunlight. When Storms approached the creature, it didn't flee like normal wildlife would. Instead, it studied his presence before moving away with deliberate pacing that suggested confidence rather than fear of human contact. Mayor E.P. Brown organized hunting expeditions that attracted participants from throughout southeastern North Carolina. Professional hunters joined local volunteers in systematic searches of areas where creature activity had been reported. On January 13, 1954, hunting party member B.E. Powell encountered the creature near Beaver Dam Creek. Powell described an animal that stood nearly 3 feet tall at the shoulder and measured approximately 5 feet in length, with muscle mass that exceeded normal feline anatomy. The creature possessed yellow-green eyes that reflected light with unusual intensity and demonstrated no fear when confronted by armed humans. Powell attempted to shoot the animal, but claimed his rifle misfired despite functioning normally before and after the encounter. Physical evidence collected during hunting expeditions included hair samples that showed characteristics different from any cataloged North American species, and additional track patterns that confirmed the creature's unusual anatomy. Plaster casts of footprints revealed five-toed structure, unlike typical feline four-toe configuration, combined with claw marks that suggested retractable talons, designed for different hunting methods than normal predatory species. The creature's apparent immunity to small-caliber firearms prompted speculation about supernatural characteristics or unknown species with defensive capabilities that exceeded normal animal protection methods. National media attention brought cryptozoologists and paranormal investigators to Bladenboro, seeking documentation of the unknown predator. Several investigation teams claimed additional sightings but failed to capture conclusive physical evidence. After 3 weeks of intensive hunting activity, the livestock killing stopped abruptly. The creature disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared, leaving behind only physical evidence and witness accounts that challenged conventional zoological understanding. Subsequent investigation attempts over the following decades have produced occasional reports of similar creature encounters throughout coastal North Carolina, suggesting the beast of Bladenboro represents a species that continues existing beyond current scientific recognition. And in eastern North Carolina, something still hunts that drinks blood and fears no human weapon. These documented encounters represent decades of witness testimony, law enforcement investigation, and physical evidence that suggests unknown predator species continue existing beyond current scientific recognition. What makes these cases particularly compelling isn't just the supernatural characteristics witnesses describe. It's the consistency of reports across different time periods and geographic locations, combined with physical evidence that challenges conventional zoological understanding. Each creature demonstrates intelligence that exceeds normal animal cognition, while possessing physical capabilities that suggest evolutionary adaptation outside documented natural history. These aren't folklore or urban legends passed down through generations. These are recent encounters investigated by credible authorities and documented in official records that file departments prefer not to discuss with the general public. The next time you're traveling through rural America after dark and something moves through the shadows at the edge of your headlights, remember that science hasn't cataloged every predator that shares this world with us. Some of them have learned to hide better than we've learned to look, and they're still out there, waiting for the right moment to remind us that humans aren't the apex predators we believe ourselves to be. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this dark journey, hit the like button and subscribe. New horror documentaries every night here on TrumbleDreams.